on this day, 1642, Christmas, a man was born that would change the world before he turned the age of 30. Isaac Newton. Today is Isaac Newton's birthday. Now, some people say, well, not the Gregorian, the Julian calendar, it's January 4th. Well, that's true, then that means Jesus' birthday isn't real. So, I don't know, people, it's such fucking bullshit. It's total fucking lies. Why would people believe the fucking lies? You know, it's total imaginary. It's not even real. And I don't know why people would do that. But honestly, like, let's just take this one step at a time. How do we know that something is real? How do we know something is real? Let's take this lid, right? I can see the lid. There it is. I can feel it. I can taste it. Tastes pretty bland. Let's see, I feel it, see it, I can hear it. I can't hear it, but like if I flick it, I can hear it, right? It makes noise. And what's the other one? Taste, see, feel, hear, smell. It smells like plastic. But the point being is that all five senses, you know, I can sense this. I can see it. I can smell it. I can hear it. I can smell it. I've never smelt Jesus, right? But let's take it one step at a time. How do I know that Isaac Newton was real? How do I know George Washington was real? I've never seen them. Right? Well, ultimately, we have seen them because they have the remains. You still got the bones, right? The DNA in the bones. But I've never personally seen them. Other scientists, other people had to go see them and put them together, and then they published reports. All this shit can be fabricated. I'm such a skeptic, I almost feel like you got to show me the videotape. Show me the fucking videotape, then I'll believe you, right? And to have that high of a threshold, right? So, okay, there's ways we could actually, the bones, I think the bones and the remains, and actually there is some report that said that Jesus' bones was found. The bones of Jesus the Christ was found. But he was found amongst other people. He's a wife and a kid and a brother and some other shit. So, that's remarkable. But if you found the bones, then that means there was no resurrection. So that part's bullshit. And probably all the magic tricks is bullshit, right? All the magician walking on water and all that. So, I don't know. This is more about Newton and his accomplishments. So I am going to get into the evidence of Jesus because I think what was found was remarkable. Everybody makes fun of this person for finding the evidence, but they're the only ones that have any evidence. They're the only ones. So what if Newton didn't exist? What if he didn't exist? It wouldn't matter because the scientific principles that he brought forth. He says gravity, you know, what comes up must come down. He's looking at an apple tree, sees an apple drop, and he's like, wait a second. What if the same gravitational force, what if the same force that has the apple fall down is the same force that makes the planets revolve around the sun? And so he connected all this, you know, and he called it gravity. But even if he didn't discover gravity, that's still a scientific principle waiting to be discovered by someone else. So if you were to delete all of his knowledge, you would still be able to find all the principles that he came up with. But it's easier once someone else has come up with it. And so if he wasn't in existence and everybody wrote under his name, it wouldn't matter. Because those principles can be used. You can use those principles, and so who cares who came up with it? You know, it's important for the inventor and for people to get the credit that they deserve, but ultimately, does it matter if, you know, Gottfried Leibniz discovered gravity? Does that change what gravity is? Of course it doesn't. And Gottfried Leibniz didn't discover gravity. I think William Blake did, or he come up with the idea, and then Newton put it in a book, and then that pissed off William Blake. But Gottfried Leibniz and Newton had a historic duel over who discovered calculus. So again, it was on the dare. Hey, I dare you to discover calculus. Okay, boom, there it is. So he made calculus up, right, out of thin air. And Gottfried Leibniz said, wait a second, you didn't make that up, I made that up. And they had this quarrel, they had this fight, and then eventually Gottfried Leibniz died, and Isaac Newton was like, good, I win. Some people say Newton was neurotic and he was bipolar. That's important, because if he was bipolar, that I just feel like being in 1600s, that's when the church and the domination and the tyranny, he's underneath all this bullshit. They point out that he has issues, father and mother issues, but I even excuse some of that too. Like, essentially, he just desperately wanted his mother's approval. His father died when he was 3 months before he was even born, so he didn't have a real father. His mother marries a wealthy stepfather, and the stepfather's dominating, controlling. She adores him and kisses his ass, right? Totally approves of everything that fucking asshole does. Why? Because she's a parasite. She's a cunt, and as a cunt, the exchange is she gives him sex and he takes care of her. Well, she never said that to him, right? She would probably be like, God and Jesus and blah, blah, blah. No, like, that's bullshit. He stayed a virgin forever. Some people said it has to do with the mother thing, but I don't know. He had some loves, and some people say he might have been a homosexual, so I don't even know what any of that stuff means. The reason why we even know some of his personal life, he said he hit his sister once, and he wanted to burn down his stepfather's and mother's house. But the only reason we know that is because he listed a thing of confessions of his sin, when he was 19. Who would do that? I mean, who would make somebody say, okay, now tell me everything that you've ever done that you think is bad? and the idiot, the fucking dumb motherfucker would be like, well, I did this and I did that. Now, if you want to stay pure in a way, by putting it out there, you don't, have regrets, or maybe you do, I don't know, because he would actually brood over this shit for hours. But what does it matter? He's a mathematical genius. Let him do his fucking thing. He needs some love. Give him some love. Let him do his, you know what I mean? Like, what he has done for humanity is immeasurable, incalculable. You cannot. What Newton brought in the Enlightenment. So let's stop talking about the Bronze Age. Let's stop talking about the Dark Ages. Let's start talking about what we could observe and what we could see. Let's use the scientific method, the empirical method. I can see this lid. I hear it fall. I see that it falls. Right? I can feel it. It doesn't have a smell, but it's got some kind of smell. But it's not like a rank, right? It's not like a strong odor. And it doesn't have much of a taste either. But, those are ways that I could perceive. And those are the only ways I can perceive things. So there's more evidence for this lid than there is for any fucking Jesus Christ. And if we're to believe that the bones were found, that's remarkable. We could see that. We could study that. We could see what's going on. So I think eventually that might be the thing, because that's like the only evidence you have. Other evidence you might have is what Newton wrote some books, and there might be statues. And what if there's churches and shit? Does all that prove his existence? Not really. Just because you have a statue of somebody, does that mean that there are statues of the Greek gods? But it seems like if you have all these things, like for George Washington, then people in that time period knew that this person existed and built, monuments and named the Washington State and Washington, D.C. in names of a person who was real, who actually existed. We also got pictures of them, and there's enemies, right? He had, foes and enemies, so you had powerful people talking about him. So it seems like if he wasn't real, why would everybody be talking about his friends, his enemies, everybody would be talking. So if he wasn't real, so that's something. Somebody writing about something. But still, there was no writings. Jesus never wrote anything. What did he write? Nothing. The only writing, the Bible, I'm going to say Josephus, that shit come after 40 years. So that'd be like me writing about Martin Luther King. Well, Martin Luther King was this, and this. And that's a big difference, because I've seen video and I've read documentaries and I got the internet. But that would be like me talking about Martin Luther King, not based on any of the stuff that I had, watched, no videos. It'd be based on either readings, or since he was the first person to write about it, it'd been based on other people's words. So other people were talking about him, and then I took those words, and I was like, well, you know, not Mark, but I don't know, Barack Obama. I was talking to Barack Obama, and Barack Obama was talking to me about this man named Jesus, so therefore, Jesus is real. And I almost think that's probably why Bill O'Reilly's freaking out about the war on Christmas, because he was kind of looking into this. He's like, oh my God, this is all bullshit. Even the Puritans hated the fucking Christmas. You know, it's a pagan holiday. Oh my God. That means if you're a true Christian, you wouldn't be celebrating it. You're a goddamn pagan, but that's what Constantine did. Made it all a fucking pagan holiday, so, you know, to get all the religions together. Universal religion, that's what Catholic means, universal. So, Newton was secretive. He rarely published. He was, I don't know. I'm just reading on the online here. Let's see. Let's go down with my notes. So, because of the consensus of science, whether or not Isaac Newton was real doesn't matter. It's the same thing with any knowledge that is to be gained. Whether Einstein was real didn't matter, because it's the principles that they left behind. We could study it, and we could say, well, Einstein, what a whack job. All that shit's bullshit. But Isaac Newton come up with the, not just gravity, but the laws of motion. For every action, there's an opposite and equal reaction, which you can kind of see like when you have those balls that's like suspended on a line. You hit one ball and it just do. For every action, boom, there's opposite and equal reaction. Boom, 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 boom. But then eventually it slows down, right? So it's not, the whole force doesn't go through all that and kick that out. Eventually it dies down, right? You got like other energy. There's wind resistance, and then it has to travel, right? So eventually it gets slower and slower, then it stops. So, it wouldn't matter if he didn't exist, because his knowledge and principles carry on. Gravity would be here with or without Newton's existence. Gottfried Leibniz said he came up with infinitesimal calculus. I don't know what infinitesimal calculus is. I don't even really know what calculus is, to be honest with you. And I passed calculus classes in college. And bullshit I bullshitted my way through calculus. I think these things are important. There's the great debate between Einstein's relativity and quantum mechanics. We've been able to figure out stuff from quantum mechanics. We figured stuff out with relativity, but essentially only one of those theories could be right. They are not. They are mutually exclusive. So Einstein says that God doesn't play dice, because a lot of quantum mechanics is about chance and probability and what are the odds that this thing is going to do this. And he says, oh, God doesn't play, dice, and that's. Whether or not you believe in God, I think that's just sort of the order of the universe, the mathematical certainty of the universe. There is a certainty to it, and therefore just using probabilities, we don't get to the truth. We don't get to the heart of the matter. We don't actually find the truth. But, the quantum mechanics, they look at the very tiny specific, the atoms and the quarks, and at a subatomic level, they look at the actual thing that it's made up of. And so when you look at an atom, subatomic, you see that atoms aren't the smallest things. There's, protons, neutrons, and electrons. And then there's like these things called quarks. And so what they do is they look at those subatomic particles and they see how they behave and how they act, and then they try to make predictions from that. So in a way it's like there's a deductive approach to logic and an inductive approach to logic. So one of them is sort of, you look at the big picture and you say, okay, I think it's all gravity. And then you use experiments and you see if it's gravity or not. Then there's other things, well, I'm not sure if it's gravity or not, but let's just, it's like you do small experiments and then you build on those small experiments. So you don't have a theory of gravity, but you say, I'm not sure exactly how that, I think that one's the deductive approach. But it makes sense, like you build small. So instead of having a big unified theory and then justifying or trying to prove that theory, you say, well, I know that this ladder falls down. I know that this thing falls down. Is that gravity? I don't know. I don't know what does that. Why it does. Why do they keep on falling down? The mass of the earth is bringing all this down? Is that what the fuck you're trying to tell me? And if that's true, then how come I'm bigger than this lighter? It's not like falling towards me, is it? So just because you have a big mass, like why does that happen? So it's good to ask why, but he's a scientist. He comes up with the laws of motion, the laws of optics, invents calculus, basically on a dare. He comes up with the principles of inertia, force, action, reaction. These are invaluable. These things matter. Could you imagine if we actually had a religion based around Isaac Newton? We would be talking about scientific principles. We would be asking, what is light? What is gravity? Which one's right? Quantum mechanics or the theory of relativity? I would say most people probably don't even know about the theory of relativity. So how do you not know? It's like you don't even look around the world and wonder how things are, and you're not even curious about it. What killed your curiosity? What killed your soul? Well, how can you have no ability to wonder and to think about things? Essentially, that's the kind of conversation, that's the kind of relationship that I want to have. If something happened, right? If let's see, I don't know. I'm going to do something just to say, did that happen? And yes, it did. This lid is real, and I know it's real, right? Now, I flicked it. No, I punched it. It's more ridiculous. Ugh. Right? That just happened. That just happened. I punched the lid. So we know that's real. We know that's real. We know that I did that. I punched. So the fact that it actually happened matters. The truth matters. And how do you determine whether or not something did or did not happen? Well, I think you got to look at it, and you got to look at the evidence, and then you got to make your best guess. And so to have a real conversation with somebody, you got to have someone else that has a like mind. They want to know reality. They don't want to be brainwashed by the religious bullshit. They want to actually know science, and they want to understand the world. Because if you don't understand the world, you want to believe the bullshit. Well, you're going to believe all the bullshit, and you're just going to be an oppressor. You're just going to be a dictatorial oppressor. And so the conversation not only is that about reality, but it's also about acquisition of power, getting a job, getting, up and above. But if the whole point is just to get you under my thumb, is just to control you, well, fuck, that's smothering. You don't actually love the person. You only love them as a tool that can be used. And a person's not a tool. There's so much more to a person. But I think that's probably why people don't have principles and they don't have any sense of morality, because they're just obedient. That's all, Papa wants, or that's all the church leaders wants. Just shut your mouth and be obedient. Do as you're told. And if you just do as you're told, then you've accepted yourself as a tool, as not being a human being, as not having emotions, not being curious about anything else. So Isaac Newton was born today. That's something that we can celebrate. I think the World Wide Web, the Internet came out in 1990, so that's something that could be celebrated. There was some other stuff. The first transistorized TV came out, so the first transistorized TV, the World Wide Web. These are scientific progresses that happened on this day that we should celebrate, since it happened. It actually happened without a doubt, 100%. Just like me punching that lid, that happened 100%. So even if there's evidence that Jesus' body existed, that's the first evidence I've heard of it. And actually, people have been believing this shit without that evidence. But there's still doubt. It's not beyond a reasonable doubt. Videotape is beyond a reasonable doubt, and even videotape can be doctored. So videotape isn't really your own eyes. That's the only way that you can know 100% is if you saw it yourself. But a lot of times videotape is pretty good because you could see things that you didn't actually see when you was actually there, and then you could play it over and over again. So either you see it yourself or you videotaped it yourself, and you know that the videotape wasn't doctored. That's the only real 100% evidence without a doubt. I punched that lid without a doubt. I didn't doctor that. That's not fake. But is Jesus real? That's in dispute. I think there's probably I would say there's like a 1% chance that he actually was real. And there was the body that they pulled up. They said it said the description was Jesus, son of Joseph, and then people would criticize that and said that was a common name. There was lots of Jesus's, son of Joseph's. So I think that's actually kind of remarkable if that's what it actually says. It's just a bunch of inscriptions, a bunch of little marks, and it's written in Aramaic. And then some people said that some of the markings doesn't exactly line up with what the other words are. And can nobody just write markings down? Can people just not write any, it's like, hey, I found this brick that's got this writing on it. I swear it's from 2,000 years ago. Ah, shit, you just fucking did that. You just fucking wrote that and you made that up. How do you know? How do you know? I mean, the only way, carbon dating, you could take the bones and do carbon dating. There is something about it was where the tomb was the family, and I don't know. I'll take a look at that more closely, but, it's in dispute. Isaac Newton's life is not in dispute. Isaac Newton was born today. His contribution to humanity. Talk to some of these religious fuckers. They don't know any laws of motion. They don't know the laws of motion. They don't know the laws of optics. They don't know calculus. And they don't know the principles of inertia, force, action, reaction. They don't know this shit, and they're not even curious about it. They don't even want to know about it. So it's like, I'd rather be blind to the reality of the world. And that's a bad conversation to have, because we need, there's even though, relativity, there's, some doubt about that. So which one is right, which one isn't right? Why is light? I've been talking about light. Light is a wave, it's a particle, it's electromagnetic, but it depends if you believe in quantum mechanics or if you believe in relativity. So light could just be electricity, or light could just be a wave and a particle, and it's electromagnetic. What the fuck are y'all talking about? I don't know. I would love to dissect light and figure out what light is. Light is what gives life, right? Without the sun, we wouldn't have life. And where does light come from? Can we reproduce light? And evidently, in an incandescent bulb and electricity, we have. And electricity, it makes sense as like little photons, right? As little particles that can travel through a line, like a water line, right? You have a water line and it goes through the water line, so you just throw these photons. But if it's magnetic, well, what does that mean? Does that mean that there's a magnetic pull to it, or that there's, I think there's just talk about light, there's so much, that goes into light, there's so much that goes into gravity, and these are just sort of basic phenomenon that we experience on a day-to-day basis. So when George Carlin says it makes more sense to worship the sun, it does make more sense to worship the sun. We see it, we experience it on a day-to-day basis, every fucking day. And people will deny that the sun's going to come up tomorrow just so that they can love their fucking Lord and Savior, Jesus Christ. Who is the Son of God, right? Where'd they come up with that shit? Because there used to be the Sun God. So the Son of God, the Sun God, Sunday, right? You worship the sun on Sunday. Saturday, Saturnalia, the worship of Saturn. Thursday, Thor Day. So there's where am I going with all this? So, I don't know, laws of motion, laws of optics, I think to get into that stuff is more important. Newton was actually an alchemist and a student of the occult. He was looking for the philosopher's stone. He wants to turn metal into gold. If you could turn metal into gold, you could be fucking filthy rich. I've heard actually there's some particle accelerators that have been able to change one element into another element, which means you can make gold today. He also wanted to find or create an elixir for immortality so he could live forever. And so even those are sort of fool's errands to chase after, but that's what inspired him to learn all these, mechanics and all these things. He also kind of laughed at the Euclid's elements. He was like, oh, those are trifling. Everybody knows those elements. They're so obvious. And he read Descartes' geometry. So, they just handed us a geometry textbook and said, this is true, this is the law, just go with it. And without explaining where it came from or why they believed it. And essentially, the math is right? 2 plus 2 always equals 4. In a triangle, a perfect triangle, like there's 180 degrees for every triangle, 360 degrees for every rectangle. These are laws, right? These are laws that cannot be denied. And so that makes that knowledge infinitely more important than, any other knowledge out there. So, one bad thing about Newton, he had a guy put to death for counterfeiting money. So he's trying to find gold. He's an alchemist trying to find fucking gold, right? But then he became the head of the currency, the England's currency or something. And when he wanted to recoin all the money, he found out that 20% of all the coins was counterfeit. And so he had this guy, William Chaloner, put to death. William Chaloner. So Isaac Newton had William Chaloner put to death for, essentially doing what Isaac Newton had done. Which just this is just an interesting fact. But then William Chaloner wasn't exactly a nice guy because he was doing all these Catholic conspiracies where he would try to find out if, I don't know if they were against the Catholics or the Protestants, but he would try to find out who they were, what they believed, and then when they admitted to who they were and what they believed, then they were tried by a tribunal, sort of like the Spanish Inquisition or the opposite, right, the Protestant Inquisitions. And I don't know, Henry Oldenberg, Robert Hooke, John Flamsteed, they all had issues with Isaac Newton. So that's why do you hate Isaac Newton? What did he ever do? I think I want to look at light a little bit more. Light's a particle in a wave. Excited state, light is radiation. E equals h times c divided by lambda. Constant times the speed of light divided by the wavelength. The speed of light is 3 times 10 raised to the 8th power meters per second. It's pretty fucking fast. Light is pretty fucking fast. Right? So, I don't know. If we can base our worldviews in reality, we would have a better experience. We would say we can discover and understand this world. And since we can discover and understand this world, that means we can control things. We can manipulate things to our advantage and to work on it to make things better. Technology, instead of just being a receiver of technology, we could actually manipulate the technology and make something for ourselves. And that's the genius of the Enlightenment. Instead of just doing what everybody tells you to do, instead you could actually, be your own boss and do your own thing. Understand the world for yourself. Disagree with others, but have reasons for why you believe what you believe. And if you truly love and care about people, I'm culturally a Christian, but I deny all the fucking tenets of the religion. I just believe in morality. The Catholic Church was getting me to talk about morals when I would go to school, and there was no dialogue. It was all oppression and authoritarianism. And the fucking, the teachers and the fucking principals and shit, they were a bunch of religious fanatics anyways. So, of course, that's all they believed is oppression. Shut up. Do what you said. Do what you're told. Learn this. Learn that. And then that's how you're supposed to learn, right? By strict obedience. And I don't think that's actually how education works. I think it's curiosity. Like I remember, I know the bones and I know most of the bones in the body, and I was forced to learn it. I'm glad that I learned that. But I'm not curious about it. Like my step into medicine or learning anatomy didn't take a step 2. So that knowledge could get in your head, but you could also forget it right away. When you're curious about it, when you want to learn about it, when you're like light. I'm so fucking curious about light right now. And essentially it's just because I made a list of all these science books and they were talking about light. And I was like, why all this conversation about light? What the all these great scientists. It's like, what is light? It's like, duh. It's like the thing comes out of the sun. That's what light is. So not only is it a better conversation for reality, but if you understand reality better, then you could also understand, power and power dynamics and power processes and how the people in power, what they want, and how you can give power to at least stop them or to power by itself. It's just a tool, right? So it's not, I don't know. Before I was 30-something years old, I always thought power was the problem. So part of me wants to hold on to that. But the other part of me says, shit, I haven't gone anywhere believing that type of shit. So, I don't know. I think my kids will always fucking say power is the problem, and maybe they'll out-liberal me, because at this point, if I am going to give myself to the mercy of society without power, they will fuck me over until the day I die. And even Frederick Douglass says that people can only feel sorry for a creature for so long until it shows power for itself. And so, that there's a lot of implications to that, not just with child rearing, but with your own development. So, happy Isaac Newton Day. Isaac Newton was born. Isaac Newton was a person. Isaac Newton was on this planet. People hate him. There's writings. He's got things we could read today, the Principia, the natural principles of the world or something. But even if he didn't, we still have I have a calculus textbook in the other room. And where did they come up with those ideas? I don't know. Maybe I can read that shit and come up with my own shit. Now I got, I'm a fucking Newton. I'm a fucking Einstein.